quiet neighborhood of Denver, an elderly man named Philip Peters began hearing strange noises in his house. Creaks, footsteps, rustling, all coming from empty rooms whenever he was alone. But each time he got up from his chair to investigate, the house appeared empty. Only silence and darkness remained. Peters didn't believe in ghosts. He thought old houses had lives of their own, creaking, groaning, breathing. He didn't give much thought to these little things, but he should have. Oh, he really should have. The noises continued, for weeks, growing louder, bolder, until one day in broad daylight, he walked into the kitchen and saw someone standing by his refrigerator. A tall, unnaturally thin figure, with skin that looked far too pale and movements that were disturbingly soft. Peters froze, then panicked and swung his cane at the stranger, but the figure struck back, with unexpected fury and strength, blow after blow. The old man fell, and then the real beating began. By the time it ended, Philip Peters was no longer breathing. The police arrived later that same day. The body was found, but here's the strange part. There were no signs of forced entry. The doors were locked, the windows too. The only thing that drew any attention was a small hatch in the pantry ceiling, but it was so narrow that the officers concluded no one could possibly fit through it. They didn't even bother to look inside. Sometime later, Peters' widow returned to the house. She brought a housekeeper with her. She didn't want to be alone, but soon the strange occurrences began again. Rustling, creaking, unfamiliar footsteps. Sometimes doors would open on their own. Lamps flickered. Objects disappeared and reappeared in other places. The housekeeper couldn't take it and fled, and the widow eventually left for good, convinced something was living in the house. The home sat empty, but neighbors continued to notice movement behind the windows, lights turning on in the dead of night, shadows flitting between rooms. Residents began calling the police again and again. Eventually, the officers decided to place a patrol outside the house, and one night, they saw it themselves. A figure flashed past an upstairs window. 2 officers immediately stormed inside. Upstairs, they heard someone fumbling with a doorknob. They followed the sound. In one of the bedrooms, someone was climbing up into that same hatch in the pantry ceiling. Only his legs were still visible. The officers grabbed them and, with effort, pulled the man down. It turned out to be a man named Theodore Koneys. He was gaunt, emaciated. He looked like the walking dead. He confessed to killing Peters, and that, ever since, he had been living in the attic for 9 months. He barely left the dark space under the roof. He survived on scraps, crept around at night, watched from the shadows. He had become part of the house. From that moment on, people began calling him the Denver Spider-Man.